Tucker, thanks for being here. Thanks for speaking the truth. And obviously, we have a lot that we can cover in a short amount of time. But let's start with a homework assignment.
Yes.
Based on what you just said, things have changed since Saturday. A lot of Americans in the center, and maybe even some of them, and they realized, oh, maybe I've not quite figured out what's been going on. A lot of us have been in that category. You've talked about that yourself. We at Heritage have said that. What do you advise the people who are in this auditorium and also the people online to do with members of their family, friends, neighbor who still don't get it? What's the advice that you give us in having those conversations to bring them into this movement that Trump has built?
Well, I kind of feel at this point that first of all, anyone who thinks the status quo is a good idea is probably not convincible. You know, if you let tens of millions of people into your country illegally, you destroy all your cities, you wreck the economy, you can't afford to go out to dinner, things aren't going well. And if you're willing to ignore that, then you're probably not someone I can persuade. So I would say that. Never give up on anyone, but probably best to just pray for those people instead of talk to them about politics. I really think the core problem in the country right now is bad leadership, and by bad I mean weak, and I think more broadly weak men are the problem. You watch these schools indoctrinate kids and try and turn them into freaks, circus freaks. And in the country that I grew up in, the dad would just punch the counselor out. Put me in jail. I don't care. Like, you weirdo. I mean, that's like child molester stuff. Talking to my kids about sex without telling me. Where's dad? He should be beating this person, like physically. And I'm happy to. I just said I'm against violence, but that's like a very basic. That's the most basic requirement of fatherhood, but also of leadership more broadly, is to be willing to die for the people in your care, period. And if you're not willing to do that, you're contemptible. And what is that? What are we looking at when we acknowledge that? Well, we're looking at the fact, which is strength is the basic requirement of leadership. Weak leadership is an oxymoron. And with weak leaders, a nation dies, a family dies, a weak father will destroy a family. A weak officer will get his men killed, and a weak president will wreck his country. And that's exactly what we've seen. I mean, Biden's core problem is weakness. And what Trump displayed on Saturday was strength of the most basic kind that is absolutely impossible to fake. You can think whatever you want about Trump or whatever you've heard about Trump. You watch that tape, the guy is shot in the face and is bleeding, and forces the Secret Service to allow him to stand up and faces the crowd. I mean, all men, when they're boys, tell themselves, well, something happened, I would jump right in, and you know what I mean? Like, I'd stop the shooter. But you don't know that, actually, because you're not faced with it. I mean, very few people are tested in the way Trump was tested on Saturday, and not only did he pass, he got the highest score ever recorded. And so you can't look at that, and it's not fakeable. That's just real. It's undeniably real. No one staged that. And so anyone who looks at that video, I think, comes away thinking that person has to lead the country because the option is more destruction. That's what I think. Just watch the video.
During your comment there and also your comment from the podium, it occurred to me that C.S. Lewis's great phrase, men without chests,
yes,
is really apropos here. And not to go, too intellectual or academic here, although remember I do lead a think tank. It seems as if, yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. It seems as if Americans are saying Washington elites, New York elites, all of these elites have complicated life. And what Trump showed us in that moment of near tragedy, as you said, is just something basic. And what we're all yearning for is just a return to normal. And it is normal for a strong man, for a man, period, to respond the way you described to the school counselor, with all this disorder. It's normal, although very, very heroic on a tremendous scale for President Trump to have responded the way he did. But it shows how starved this country is for just normal things. What's your prediction for themes this week at the RNC from a messaging expert who's got his pulse on things? What should the campaign really focus on, not just for President Trump and Mr. Vance, but for people out here in the audience and digitally who are going to be involved in local campaigns? What do we need to be emphasizing rhetorically?
Well, I mean, I think, can I say one thing really quick, which is the definition of strength, I think, needs to be a little more precise. Strength is not, abusive behavior or authoritarian behavior. That's what weak people do. That's what Gretchen Whitmer did during COVID in the neighboring state of Michigan. This is a demonstrably weak person with a facelift who's like terrified to go out in public, and yet she's telling people they can't buy paint in a paint store. That's not strength. That's fragility. She is fragile and brittle, and that's why she's acting that way. True strength is calm. That's the first thing about strength. Someone who's actually strong is in command, doesn't need to prove it, because people can smell it.